Welcome to episode 1089 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined as always by Jason Collette. Jason, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing well. Not a bad Sunday. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's just another beautiful day to talk fantasy baseball. Not going to be too hot here in Northern California, which is a nice little change of pace. But I'm even more excited because we have a special guest today. We have Ray Murphy from Baseball HQ coming on to talk some FAAB and something even more important FAAB this week, First Pitch Arizona. Ray, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invite, guys. Thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. Remind everybody where you reach on social media and then talk about First Pitch Arizona and why everybody should be booking their tickets right now.
Exactly. It's that time of year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can follow me at Twitter at RayHQ. For anyone not familiar with my work, I'm the co-general manager at Baseball HQ. One of the things we put together every year is our in-person symposium at the Arizona Fall League. We call it First Pitch Arizona. It runs November 3rd to 6th this year out in Phoenix Mesa area. We're out there for a weekend of Arizona Fall League action and the Fall Stars weekend event. So we basically, as you guys well know as longtime attendees, we basically alternate being in the hotel doing conference sessions, fantasy baseball discussions, player analysis, strategy discussion, drafts, all of those sorts of things. And when we're not doing those things, we're out at the ballpark checking out the Fall Stars in action and checking out the AFL games. We'll get a game on Thursday, 2 games on Friday. A home run derby is a new event this year on Saturday, and then Sunday night's the Fall Stars game for people who can stay that long. So it's I think the best way I've heard it described in the last couple of years is an immersive fantasy baseball experience. It's just you'll show up, you walk into the hotel. Sometimes even before you walk into the hotel, maybe you run into somebody at the airport, and you just kind of get your brain in that mode, and it stays there until you head back to the airport for 72 hours later or what have you. It's a great way to spend a otherwise random weekend in November. We get maybe game 6 and 7 of the World Series this year as well, which is another fun wrinkle. So we're deep into planning stages now, and one of the reasons we're here to talk about it today is we've got a registration deadline coming up next weekend. On Friday is the last day to get our current best price, which is $349 for the weekend. So it's a nice deal there, and I will turn it over to you guys and let you tell me what you guys like about the event.
Well, Jason's been going longer than me, so I'll let him go first.
I think my first year was 2008. I believe it was my first year. I missed 1 year for something. I forget, but that's the only time I've ever missed. But I mean, to me, it's just an opportunity to be able to talk with people that are playing in all different types of leagues and formats, and to hear things either from the capacity of actual baseball scouts to people trying to make their way up through, and you get a nice balance of what the eyes see versus what the data tells you. And it's just a lot of inputs. And then at the end of the day, you sit down and you decide, how many weights you're going to put on what input. And then compare and contrast. And it's what I like about it. It's not always, it's not an echo chamber. It's you're looking for information, not affirmation. And so Justin may say, I love this guy. And Ray may be like, you're an idiot. I hate this guy. And this is why. And then it leads to a nice discussion through. So if you're looking for affirmation, you're going to have to hunt, because you rarely get consensus on things, but it leads to great discussion. And often it's like we run out of time. It's like some of these panels are so good. It's like, oh God, it's like we got to keep things moving and we're out of time. And then it becomes fire pit discussions or wherever else discussions. And the weekend just flies by. You wake up that last morning, you're like, it's over already. Honestly, it could easily go a week. I know, like, financially, it's rather impossible to do that. But I think back to some of my sales meetings that I have to go to at work for my day job. And by the end of those, I want to go home. Conversely, it's like we get to that Sunday morning and I'm like, I could stay at least another day. And in fact, I just did. As we were starting to record, I pushed my flight out. So I'm flying home on Monday now. I don't have to rush out on Sunday with that, because the Fall Stars game is Sunday night. And so I don't want to miss that. I always enjoyed doing that. And we have the home run derby on Saturday night, and then the All-Star Fall Stars game on Sunday night. So I changed my flight to fly home Monday. And I'll make it work because it's a lot easier than getting home, going West Coast to East Coast, and getting back so late, like dragging into work the next day. I'm just going to take Monday off now and just travel home Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I love First Pitch Arizona. I've been going now. This will be my third year. I started going in 2019. Obviously, 2020 we didn't get to have one, unfortunately, at least not one in person. So for me, I love the panels. I love the games, but for me, the best part is hanging out with all of the people, right?
Even me?
Even you. Less so you than other people. But I mean, the things that I learned hanging around the fire pit, talking to Rob Silver and Vlad Sedler and Matt Modica and Todd Zola and like all these guys who are just infinitely smarter than me. Being able to just sit down and have one-on-one conversations with them, bounce things off of them, going, playing poker at night, and going out to dinner with people, talking with people. Like it's such a fun and almost like family atmosphere in terms of just getting together with people you may not really know in person, but you get to know in person. And it's so invaluable from a fantasy baseball knowledge standpoint that I couldn't imagine missing it. I'm missing my eldest child's first band concert in middle school, so I can go. So sorry, certain things take priorities.
That's high praise. No, you guys both hit on something that I've always treasured as one of the one of the key elements that make it so successful. And it's not even something we can take credit for because I'm sort of one of the current stewards of this thing now, but obviously was started, years ago by Ron Chandler, Rick Wilton, et cetera. But it's the spirit of sharing and the idea that we bring in so many different analysts. You guys both rattled off a bunch of names of guys who all write for different sites. Their work is visible in different areas, but everyone's bringing their best here and everyone's sharing their best, right? No one's holding back like, oh, this is my sleeper. I'm not talking about him in November. He's the one I'm looking to cash in on in March. Everyone is putting their cards on the table. And as Jason said, that leads to a better discussion of here's why I like this guy. Here's why you're crazy. And you can't have those kinds of fruitful, in-depth conversations unless everyone sort of agrees to not pull their punches, right? And for, as I said, reasons that go on before I was even involved in this thing, that's the ethos of the place, right? Is everyone's got their cards on the table and is showing their best work.
And if you are interested or you like to kind of see behind the scenes in terms of like how certain player prices in terms of like ADP and auction values get set so early on in a draft season, First Pitch Arizona is one of the reasons. There are multiple drafts. I think we had 4 drafts last year going on at the same time. And people will kind of plant their flags on players early. We saw the Patrick Sandoval people going crazy, driving up that price. We saw the Aaron Ashby people going crazy, driving up that price. Every year there's 2 or 3 guys that become the talk of the conference. And that's where a lot of the hype and helium gets started on some of these guys. So if you are into early drafting, this is a great place to go because you're going to hear those names before they're all over the airways and all over articles, pumping up their prices, by the time you get to February and March.
Yeah, consider it insider trading. So
it is, yeah, for sure.
A Sunday morning ritual. You were talking about waking up on the last day and being amazed it's over already, Jason. And the thing that always cracks me up on Sunday morning is everybody running to the draft boards the night before and taking their pictures of them on their phones. Right? I'm going to snag my picture of this and stare at it for like however many hours my flight is on the way home. And that's, as you say, kind of one of the ways the market gets set.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an absolutely fun time, a blast. You have to go if you can afford to. I know not everybody can, and that's why we continue to kind of talk about what happened after the fact and stuff. But it's just a really really great place to meet people who are like-minded about baseball and fantasy baseball. Learn a lot of information and have just a really really great time. The hotel is fantastic that we're staying at. It's right across the street from the Mesa Park, is it Sloan Park? Sloan Park. So yeah,
They share a parking lot. That's how close they are.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the All-Star game is and the Home Run Derby this year. So, last year, unfortunately, there weren't many games there for us to go to at night. So this year we get to just walk across the street, go to those games, especially those big events. So it's well worth staying at the hotels, being there for the conference. You're not going to regret it. I have not met yet a person that said, "Oh, I wish I hadn't gone." I've only met people that say they're going back.
Yeah, our return registration rate is very, very strong, and that's why it's people. People who come. What the hardest part is talking them into it, right, or getting them to make the commitment, clear their schedule. Like Jason said, even beyond the financial element, flying from East Coast to West Coast for basically a 3-day weekend requires a lot of jiu-jitsu, especially if you got kids or anything like that. But all we can say is the people who make the commitment once keep coming back, and that's about the best endorsement we can give.
Yeah, the poor planning on my part was a daughter being born on November 2nd. And so it's like even this year, it's like looking out, I'm like, that's why I'm not coming out Wednesday night, because we did that. Year one, I already bought everything, booked. I had a flight. I left the evening or the afternoon of the 2nd. We literally had the birthday party because she was 1. I'm like, she's not going to know if I'm here or not. Blew out the cake. I left, went to the airport. I still hear about that. There have been a couple of years where I've been out there on her birthday. And then one year, I think I've told the story on here on the podcast, but one year I was out there. I left the night early, took the red-eye flight because her birthday. I think it was one of these years where it was the 29th until the 2nd or 3rd. Took the red-eye flight home. Took a nap in the Atlanta airport in my layover. Got home, woke up. Hey, honey, happy birthday! And she's like, "Can I go play with my friends?" And I was like, "That's it. See, I did all this effort to get home for her birthday, and she did not care if I was here or not." I'm like, "That's it. We're done." But now, as I looked at the schedule months ago, I'm like, "Oh, it's going to start the 3rd. Perfect. I'll fly out first thing in the morning on the 3rd, so I'm here for the birthday because she'll be 15 this year with that." But yeah, I'll never forget flying home red eye, just dragging and coming home, and I was like, "I'm going to bed," and I went to bed and slept the rest of the day because I don't sleep on airplanes. I'm just big.
Yeah,
I sleep at First Pitch Arizona, so that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I miss my youngest daughter's first birthday in order to come out in 2019, and I still have not heard the end of it, even though she has no idea. My wife and my other child don't let me forget, and that's okay. It was a blast. I had a fantastic time. So, kid doesn't.
We were there. Just Photoshop, put pictures.
Exactly. Yeah, the Photoshop is a beautiful thing. Let's transition away from First Pitch Arizona and start talking about some news, and then we're going to get into a bunch of FAAB for the weekend because this is surprisingly this late in the season going to be a pretty active FAAB week. Let's first talk about Josh Hader. He's going to get a quote unquote break from closing as he has struggled since coming over to San Diego. Ray, who do you think is next up in San Diego, and would you drop Josh Hader?
I mean, I'd be willing to drop anybody at this time of year. I guess my fear with Hader is that, we could talk for a couple of minutes about what the root cause of the issue is here, but my fear is that maybe it gets straightened out very quickly, and I think I'd probably hold a little bit longer before I actually dropped him. But a lot of that depends on your save situation, your alternatives. It's certainly not, I'm not saying it's a time for patience, but I'm saying if you drop him tonight, I wouldn't rule out that you regret it by as early as next weekend, right? But in terms of what happens in the meantime, I think, it was briefly Luis Garcia around the trade deadline in between Taylor Rogers and Hader, and I think that's probably where they go back. I'm watching Robert Suarez too. Those are probably, if I'm if I'm hunting for saves this weekend in San Diego, that's where I'm looking. But I'm not sure Hader's out of this role for long.
Jason, who do you think's next up? And do you think Hader's out of the role for long?
I mean, obviously, it's not the return on investment San Diego thought they were hoping to get when they made this deal. I'm looking at the numbers: 22 batters faced, more walks than strikeouts, and 6 earned runs. I was reading a story the other day, where Hader's talking about that his delivery's gotten a little east-west, and that he thinks it's a mechanical issue, that he's gotten a little east-west, and he needs to tighten things up. I mean, all of us have watched him pitch. You know what the delivery looks like. It's loose. Yeah, but if he's getting east and west and he can't get a consistent release point, it would explain these types of numbers. And it wasn't like he wasn't, he was having some issues before the trade. So it's not like these things just came up as he went over. I mean, he was getting on the struggle bus in Milwaukee towards the end. Maybe it was the trade rumors, and now that he's changed that, but pitching coach wise, let's not forget San Diego had issues last year. Who's their pitching coach now? I forget who they added.
I don't remember.
They're doing wonderful with Blake Snell, getting him back in alignment, because Snell was struggling, and hopefully they can do the same thing with Hader. I agree with Ray. It's like, if the mechanical tweak, it's only going to take an outing for him to. It could be one outing for him to turn this around. But right now, it's like he's unrecognizable. He hasn't had a strikeout in his last 2 outings against the Nationals. I mean, that's how you're supposed to get strikeouts against those guys. And he hasn't been able to get a strikeout in either one of his last 2 appearances with that. So it could just take one time around. I'll give him another week. But we're running out of ramp. So it's like, give him another week. And if it doesn't show, and the thing is, he may only get 2 appearances this week. And that's one of the things with some of this. He's appeared on the 9th, the 18th, and the 19th. So they gave him a little bit of a break and said, okay, let's see what you can do. And he's come back, and there hasn't been much of an improvement yet. So he's got one more week on my roster. If I had him, I don't have him anywhere because I wasn't paying that price coming into the season.
I do have him in one of my main events, so this is a bummer for me. It's been pretty brutal. I'm holding on to him for a little while. I know that there's not much time left in the season, but there's very few guys who can impact the category in the way that he can down the stretch, if and when he does get the job back. I assume he will get the job back once he is right. So I'm not cutting bait quite yet. That may change here in the next week or two. Like Jason said, not much time left in the season. I do agree Luis Garcia seems likely to be the next man up. Robert Suarez could factor into that. Adrian Marone is back healthy. Finally, he could factor into it. Nick Martinez. I think Luis Garcia is the number one, but it's kind of one and then a bunch of like twos that might be sneaking in there. It could turn into like a full-blown committee, to be honest.
Sure.
If there's enough time for that to play out, right? And then, back to Hader, just to, some of the other wrinkles that make me think that maybe this is fairly short term. One of the things that came up somewhere on Twitter the other day was that, he's got a young child who's just a couple of weeks old and coming off a difficult pregnancy. And, there's the whole, these guys are people when he just moved across the country. And, I don't know whether his wife and kid are with him or not, but there's certainly some stressors going on there. The other thing that I was just nosing around with this morning is I had a trigger in the back of my head that, thinking about the last time Hader went through a real rough spot. I was going through his game logs, and it was like July of 2019 or August of 2019 where he gave up runs in like 5 or 6 consecutive outings, and it turned out to be a tweaked back. And you would think if it was something like that, they would put him on the IL, but maybe that's why they gave him that 8 or 9 day break. The thing about it that was interesting is that when he got right in a hurry. So maybe he's just got to find the right, beside the right chiropractor in San Diego. I don't know. But, I go, which all brings me back to the whole, watch for another week and he'll probably make the decision obvious for you.
Yeah. Tyler Mahle is hitting the IL with shoulder inflammation. He's a pretty easy drop, right, Jason?
Yeah, it's shoulder. It's going to be weeks. That's kind of what we run into. When the guy has a shoulder trouble, it's not just something, 10 days off. Oh, we'll feel better. Then it's a throwing program. And so it's, I guess I'm the resident shoulder expert with the 3 surgeries. So
Yes.
it's like, it takes some time. I think the trickle down effect though is it depends. Well, it depends. Like if Dylan Bundy can come out and pitch as he did in his last outing, like where the hell did that come from? That worked out nicely. But this week, the Twins are traveling to Houston, and so Dylan Bundy and Chris Archer are set to face the Astros. I'm telling you this so you can stack your Astros this week because those are both really, really poor pitching matchups for the starter, and that should be I don't know who has the Tuesday game. It's not showing. It may be Johnny Bullpen pitching the opening game of the series, but Bundy and Archer have the next 2 out of that. This is unfortunate. I mean, the Twins went out and made this acquisition because it's what they needed, because we've talked about, I think 4 to 6 weeks ago about how a lot of the guys in this rotation were already well over their skis on workload jumps, and they needed to get somebody in this rotation that could help shoulder that load. And no pun intended, it's not going to be Mahle. And they really don't have anything to bring up and do this. So they're going to have to really lean into their bullpen. I know the other day, Pagan came in and followed up Mahle and got a win the other day. But unless they can think they can squeeze something out of, I don't even know what they could squeeze something out of. I'm looking through the farm system. Josh Winder's still hurt. You got Jordan Balasevic, possibly. Drew Stottman was the other guy that came over in the Nelson Cruz trade with Joe Ryan. That's somebody they could perhaps lean on because he's on the 40, but not good.
Aaron Sanchez supposed to get the Tuesday start for the Twins against the Astros. He sets up for a 2-start week against the Astros and the Giants.
Sanchez, Archer, and Bundy. Party like it's 2016.
Right. If you're wondering why Minnesota's lost so much ground in the Central, there you go.
It has a lot to do with it.
Ray, anything to add on Mahle? Easy drop?
Yeah, easy drop. And I sort of have this default mindset that I'm trying to delay that insta drop mentality this year just because season is a little bit longer. We do go 5-6 days into September, and end of August is not necessarily, we're percentage wise, we've got a little more runway left than we usually do, but shoulders are not a place where I mess around. Just to pile on the names we're throwing out, I'm pretty sure I saw that Kenta Maeda was throwing a bullpen the other day.
Wow.
He may actually be appearing in this rotation sometime in September. I was waiting for Bailey Ober to get back so that one of Bundy or Archer would get removed from this rotation, and obviously those guys have pretty entrenched positions now, given Mahle, et cetera. And that's, as Jason says, not good news, except for Twins opponents.
Mm-hmm. Seranthony Dominguez hit the IL this morning with a tricep strain. Ray, who are your thoughts on who might be first man up in Philadelphia now that Dominguez is not the closer for now?
Well, last night it was David Robertson for a 2-inning save, and I'm not sure they want to do that all that often, but I think that's probably a good indication that it's going to be Robertson first. Looking at who else there might be, Brad Hand has a nice ERA that is built entirely on smoke and mirrors, but we've seen a couple of times this year where they've turned to him in matchup specific situations. That I certainly can't rule that out. Since coming off since missing some of the beginning of the season, Connor Brogdon's been decent, but I don't think that's really, he's been more than decent, but I don't think that's really a situation where he's going to supplant Robertson. The Robertson, Dabrowski just went out and paid for him, and I think that usually means that they're gonna run with him in this situation.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, since Robertson obviously makes the most sense. Last night's 2-inning save was also a 36-pitch save. But Robertson's done this before, even on Wednesday, threw 22 pitches. We mentioned Brad Hand. Brad Hand last night threw 14 pitches. They were the first 14 pitches he had thrown all week. It's just a weird utilization situation there. So they appeared really to be holding hand for a very specific role with this. So, but Robertson is in the been there, done that category. And you've got Alvarado and Hand both for the lefty situation. So if they're holding if they've been holding hand for certain things, you can let Alvarado do that as well. But this should be Robertson's running away.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's going to be Robertson. I know that Philadelphia likes having Robertson kind of in the fireman role, but I don't know that you want to turn over the ninth at hand right now. So, because like Ray was saying, it is largely built on smoke and mirrors. Yasmani Grandal to the IL. Easy drop there, Jason?
Oh, God. I was so high on him coming into the season. He has been killing me in so many rosters. Easy. I mean, it's back again. It's the back that's been bothering him.
I think it's a knee issue.
Oh, this is knee this time.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of trunk and down trouble this year. And yeah, he's droppable. I mean, even when he has been active, he hasn't been usable. It's been a bad situation as Zevi Civale has been out playing him. I think maybe we should have seen it coming when Grandal was down here in Charlotte on a rather lengthy rehab assignment. I was surprised how long he stayed down here, but I saw him play in a couple of games before his latest activation. But I'm dropping him just out of frustration at this point. I'm done. I have him in 4 different leagues and done.
Ray?
Yeah, nothing to add on this year outlook. I guess I start to have questions about, to Jason's point about the accumulating injuries on the trunk and down there, whether he's even a catcher long-term anymore. And, obviously, at least for another year, he retains the eligibility for our purposes. So that's good. But I do wonder whether we're going to have to see some kind of adjustment in how he is deployed to, get any value out of him. And, by the way, Civale is a pretty decent do no harm catcher for your, and now he's going to be getting regular at bats. You could do worse than that in your C2 for the next 6 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm doing AL tout.
I'm wondering what the White Sox are going to do next year, because I think they would like to move Andrew Vaughn to first base full time and kind of hide Eloy at DH with Jose Abreu. I believe his contract being up at the end of the year. But they still have another year on Grandal, and I don't know if he can continue to be behind the plate at the the levels that he's been. So. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason. Hopefully, getting rid of Tony La Russa is at the top of the list.
I was going to say there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah. Let's move into some FAAB work. There's going to be a pretty active FAAB session tonight in in all fantasy baseball leagues. You got to start off with Brett Baty, who not only came up and hit a home run in his first at bat, it was on the first pitch of the at bat. He's going to be a hot commodity at the hot corner. Ray, what are your thoughts on Brett Baty as a FAAB pickup?
Well, while not trying to overinterpret what he's done in his first 5 games, it is kind of interesting. It jumps out. Obviously, the home run got a lot of attention, and the other good news is he's not striking out much. He's only struck out 3 times in, doing quick math here, it looks like 17 at bats. But he's also only hit 4 balls in the air, which seems like a bit of a problem. He's killing worms all over the place with the ground balls. And again, not to overinterpret what we're seeing as he makes his adjustment here, but I mentioned all of this because looking at our playing time projection on Baseball HQ, we've got him at 55% of the playing time at third base, which I haven't talked to Phil Hertz, our NL East analyst here, but that to me amounts to a giant shrug. I don't know. Right. Escobar's out until probably mid-September with an oblique. So Baty's got some running room there. But is Baty going to be able to hold off Escobar when he comes back? It's going to depend on whether he hits. And that brings me back to the very early returns here. And I think the question of how quickly he adjusts is going to be what determines the answer.
Jason, what are your thoughts on Baty?
I'm pissed because I went to Tuesday here in Charlotte. Syracuse has been in town all week. So Tuesday, I'm going to the game. Brett Baty's going to hit leadoff. Francisco Alvarez is going to hit second. I'm like, all right, get to the park. It's posted. And then I'm walking to the park. Hey, he's been promoted. No. I wanted to see him play in person. But then I got to see the Mark Vientos show too. And that dude's got pop. He was hammering the ball. Got to see the ghost of what was Dominic Smith play in the game as well, and even Khalil Lee. They put a hurting on the Charlotte Knights pitching staff with that. But I agree with everything that Reyes said about Baty. I mean, the good news, he's been in the lineup every single day. He's hitting eighth, and he's elevating the baseball. But it was a great first pitch moment. His family was there to see it, and that was awesome. Love those types of things with that. But I'm just a little bitter that I didn't get to see him play in person, because I was looking forward to that Tuesday night when I said, "Oh, Syracuse! Ooh, look who's in this lineup! I'm going!" And he gets called up.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys as well. I mean, you have to look too, kind of like what he did in the minor leagues. He had a 56 ground ball percentage this year at AAA. So it's the guy who tends to hit more on the ground. He's got a ton of power. I mean, it's legit 70 grade power in the bat, but he's got to learn to elevate it a little bit. That being said, Eduardo Escobar has been atrocious this year. I mean, he's just been really, really bad. I can't imagine there's really a reason for the Mets, who are competing for really good seeding in the playoffs right now, that they need to put Eduardo Escobar.
They're trying to keep it. They're trying to keep Atlanta at bay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working out well. Every time I turn around, it's like yesterday they split the doubleheader, and then Atlanta came back and won last night in extras.
Yeah. And it's important because you want to win that division, so that way you get that first round bye. You don't have to play in the wild card games. So
if they could trade Escobar. I mean, don't forget they have a guaranteed. Escobar's got guaranteed money next year, and then a club option.
Yeah, but
that.
They don't care about the guaranteed money as much now that they've got the super, super rich owner.
No, maybe they can move it,
yeah.
Or he's an expensive bench option.
Like they just don't. I don't think they care as much about the money type situations that they like they used to. But I think if Baty hits, he's gonna continue to play. Like I just don't see why they would go back to a player in Escobar who's clearly struggling all season long, and I think really has been affected kind of by the dead and ball this year. I think he went from wall scraping kind of power to doubles power.
Just enough, and not enough.
Exactly. So Mike Soroka is working his way back. Speaking of the Braves, coming back after just really struggling to get back from these Achilles injuries. Jason, any interest in picking up Mike Soroka as kind of a stash play?
Not really. Not really. I never liked the guy much before he was hurt. I never really bought into the skill set. I mean, I know he had that one full season, but I recall bold predictions like running away from him. I don't like the foundation of this. And he gets hurt in what is this third outing of that season. Then he got hurt with it again. I've never been impressed watching the stuff. But I know he's had the results. So not somebody that I'm actively hoping to get this weekend.
What about you, Ray? Any interest in Mike Soroka?
I took a look. We're only projecting him for 12 innings this year, which is going to be a token 2 or 3 September starts. If they accelerated his timeline, I might get more interested, but lacking evidence of that, and given what we were just saying about how the Braves are trying to reel in the Mets, and I'm not sure that they're going to run him out there until they're confident he's one of their 5 best guys to be in that rotation. So if he's a mid-September guy, this is still a couple of weeks too early for me.
He's got a rehab assignment today. He's got another start today with Gwinnett. So keep an eye on the news to see what happens today for him. I mean, obviously there's room in the rotation. We've talked about how Strider, they've got to, he's already pitched a lot compared to last year. Odorizzi we've already seen the Odorizzi tax happen where he stayed in the games too long, has gotten beat up. And so even if they could piggyback and say, Jake, go get first 15 to 18. Okay. And then Soroka come in and finish that,
sure.
Try to do something along, but they need another arm that can work multiple innings, because right now they've just been throwing out some of these other relievers, and they've got a nice deep bullpen with all this. But they need another arm that can give them some bulk. That's the weird thing for them is they're still trying to chase the division. So it's like it'd be different if they were in the West and one of these divisions where you're 10 plus games out at this point. You can kind of manage. What your postseason role is going to be at this point. Like if I'm the Padres, you're trying to just manage what your postseason is going to look like. But Atlanta's got a very good shot at winning that division. And so they need somebody to help offset some of that load. They're getting it from Freed and Wright. Morton looked fantastic in his last outing, but I still have my concerns about them running Strider out there at the volume that he's been using. And Odorizzi, he is what he is, and everybody knows it. And he needs somebody that can come in and pitch the rest of his game.
I'm watching it very closely, and I'll be interested to see what he does today in terms of his rehab start at AAA. In his first rehab start, he went 4 innings. He struck out 8. That is not the Mike Soroka we know. Now, it wasn't high A, so there's obviously caveats. But what I said about him when Paul and I talked about him, I think last week or maybe earlier this week, is that a guy like Soroka, who doesn't get a ton of strikeouts to begin with, needs volume to make him valuable over the course of time. We don't have enough time left for him to volume his way to be valuable. If he's striking people out at a high clip right now in the minor leagues, he might become a little bit more interesting, especially if he's going deeper into games than we kind of expected. I mean, 4 innings in his first rehab start is more impressive than I would have expected. I would have expected him to go 1 or 2, maybe even 3 innings max. So kind of monitor what's going on. I don't know that I'd want to pick him up this week. Obviously, I think he's going to get at least another rehab start or 2 after this one. So I would expect at the earliest that maybe he's there early September, but it's probably more mid-September. Franmil Reyes is starting to get going a little bit now in Chicago after being traded not traded. He was DFA'd and then traded by the Cleveland Guardians. Jason, what are your thoughts on Franmil? Is this the time to pick him back up?
He's certainly getting the consistent playing time with stuff. I have not seen him play, so I can't tell you if he's not doing his own version of worm killing the baseball as he's known to do with stuff. But he certainly has been getting the playing time with the Cubs and making the most of it. So ride the heater and see what happens. I don't know what else to say about it, but like I said, at least he's getting the playing time. He is putting the ball in play. He has. I mean, we've talked about one of the bonuses of the Cleveland lineup is they make the most contact in baseball. And so they put the pressure on the defense to make those plays, with guys like Quan and Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario, and obviously Jose Ramirez. But they are they put the ball in play. And for Reyes, that was one of the things that was always frustrating with him. It's like, oh, wow, you had Cleveland, you have all these guys on base, and you just couldn't do enough with that. And so then he goes to Chicago, who's kind of like the antithesis of that, who strikes out a bunch, doesn't put a bunch of guys on base, and then Reyes is driving those guys in. So it's like, I know he's been driving you nuts all year, but I kind of feel like you kind of ride the heater and see, but have a quick trigger on it.
What about you, Ray?
Yeah, I agree with ride the heater, and I'm usually pretty favorable toward the Indians and Guardians, excuse me, I'm still doing that, about how they handle their resources and the financial constraints they have, et cetera. But this seemed rash when they gave up on them. And maybe this is one of those places where the guy needed a new voice. Looking at the batted ball profile that Jason was alluding to, the thing that jumps out at me is, 42 at bats in August with the Cubs now. His line drive rate is up to 22%, which is the thing that was the most aggravating about him in Cleveland, is that he was either hitting fly balls or hitting grounders, but his line drive rate was sitting around 15% the last couple of years, and now it's up to 22. The sample size is tiny, but maybe indication that new hitting coach, new instruction, new philosophy, like Jason says, there's a voice in his ear now that is getting things straightened out, and really, given time of year, et cetera, that's all I need to ride the heater.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is obviously a small sample, and he's running with like a 417 BABIP since coming to Chicago. And so I do think things will even out a little bit. But, I mean, these are the kind of waves you get from a guy like Franmil. You're going to get these ups and downs, and you have to just kind of be able to ride the wave. I think right now you got to ride the wave while he's hot. And so I think he is kind of near the top of the pecking order in terms of FAAB pickups for the week.
It was only a couple of years ago at this time that it was Aristides Aquino, who doesn't have all that different a profile, who mashed 15 home runs in August or whatever it was. That's what you're trolling for, right?
Absolutely, especially if you need power right now.
Yeah, here's a funny stat with Reyes. In all of his time with Cleveland this year, 5 barrels. 5.
Mhm.
18 hard hit balls. In his little time with Chicago, 4 barrels, 14 hit balls. So he's almost done as much in this 2 weeks than he did in 4 months with Cleveland. If I'm doing this right now, my math's
No, your
wrong.
math
Hold
is
on.
no, your math's correct.
No, the filter. I clicked the wrong filter. Let's do a little different. All right, 20. Never mind. Just forget that. I'm an idiot. I had May. So whatever. He's done more. He's done more in 2 weeks than he has in the first 5 weeks of the season already. So that's what it was. I just looked over. I'm like, oh, never mind. It's a bad date. I knew he'd be bad. Even those numbers didn't sound right reading them out. Carry on.
Let's carry on to Shea Langeliers, who got the call and is now playing in Oakland. Ray, is he kind of a must pick up in deep, like 2 catcher leagues?
I mean, on this team, sure he has to be, right? I mean, it's been for all the jokes about what the A's are running out there, I sort of think the bottom of the barrel is every time I open their box score, and it's been a couple of times a week that you actually find Stephen Vogt DHing. It's like, what are we doing here, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, at the very least, this should close the door on that. I would assume what's going to happen is we're going to get a little more Sean Murphy DHing. He shouldn't be taken out of this lineup, but Langeliers is, in addition to, as a refresher, top 100 prospect, came over from Atlanta in the Matt Olson deal, but he's also a top shelf defensive catcher. The bat seems like it came along this year, but I believe what's going to happen is they're going to let him catch because he's the classic tools lead defensive catcher, and they'll let Murphy DH a little bit, catch a couple times a week, and for sure, given the team, you've got to assume that this is an audition for Langeliers to show that he's ready to handle this job next year, and Murphy gets traded in the offseason. But that's a bit of a wait and see. But I assume that's what's going on here.
Jason, what are your thoughts on Langeliers?
I don't recall the runner he threw out this weekend. It was either Friday or Saturday. He made a peg. I saw it on Twitter. He threw somebody out. He was framing down behind the plate, on his left knee, caught the pitch, believe it was a strike, caught it and threw an absolute seed down to second base where the second baseman just received the ball and, just put his glove down. Ball went right to the glove and they got the runner out. It was an incredible, to see a rookie get up and make that kind of peg was just like, that was, and I know that has nothing to do with fantasy, but it was like, oh my God, for him to be able to do that and make it look so easy. But that's the kind of thing that keeps you in the lineup. That he's going to, the hitting could go anywhere with it, but that kind of defense is what's going to keep him in the lineup doing that. It's what honestly, it's what had Bethencourt in the lineup as long as he was there because he was showing the ability on defense as well with that and making hard contact. But honestly, what I've seen of him, I know he had a home run earlier this week as well. But that defensive throw just really stood out because you don't see that kind of defense from kids anymore. Even Rutschman, as well as he's hitting, I haven't seen watching 8-10 Orioles games, have not seen that kind of wow moment from him. But just the one highlight that I saw of Langeliers, that kind of throw, he should get as much time as he wants in the lineup and behind the plate and let the bat work its way out. As you said, Stephen Vogt shouldn't be taking any playing time from him.
Yeah, Langeliers is in the lineup today as the starting catcher. He had been in his 4 games so far. He's been the DH 3 times and the catcher 1. So a little interesting to see. But he's been DHing a little bit more, but that'll probably even itself out. I think that's a really good sign because it means he's going to play full time even when he's not catching. Right, he's still in the lineup as the DH. If you're kind of rotating through the league's worst catchers with your C2 position, I don't think you can do any worse than going for a guy like Langeliers, who's going to play every day, has shown a little bit of offensive spark in the minor leagues. And like Ray mentioned, is a premium defensive catching prospect. So I think he will be able to cement himself into that Oakland lineup as bad as it looks. Let's talk about Eduardo Rodriguez. He's coming back after going on the restricted list for personal reasons. Ray, what are your thoughts? Is Rodriguez the kind of guy that can carry a fantasy team's pitching staff the rest of the way? Because, I mean, he was kind of an SP2 coming into drafts this year.
Yeah, he was going in what I'm recalling his ADP off the top of my head, but somewhere in the like round 10, 12 range, something like that. And in the 15 teamers. And, you know, when you compare him to some of the other pitchers that we've been talking about picking up the last few weeks, or that you might be bidding on tonight, you know, a couple of points in his favor. One is he wasn't actually physically hurt, right? You know, he's had some downtime for the last 6-8 weeks, whatever it's been, but it's not an injury rehab situation. The only thing he's been doing on his minor league rehab is, you know, strengthening his arm and ramping up his workload. And I guess kind of predictably, given that he's not coming off an injury, the rehab's gone really well. You know, with 2 walks and 17 strikeouts across 3 minor league outings. His last outing, AAA, 6 innings, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts. So I don't think there are any questions about whether he's ready. I don't think there are any questions about that they're going to have, you know, he's going to come back and compare to like a Soroka or something like that, where he's going to come back and throw 3 innings in this start, 4 innings in this start. He's dropping back in his rotation to be the front man that he was supposed to be when they signed him this past offseason. And for 6 or 7 weeks, I don't see any reason why he can't do that.
Yeah, he was pick 112 in main events this draft season, so a pretty high pick. Jason, is he kind of the top of the pickups if you're looking for a pitcher this week and he's available in your leagues? He's available in something like 70% of ESPN leagues right now.
Wow, I grabbed him. I thought I grabbed him. I know I drafted him. I have him in 2 different leagues. I'm looking now. So I have him in the AFL Speakers League. That's where I drafted him, and then I have him in my Draft Champion. So I took him in 2 different DC leagues with him. So he's pitching today. He's making his first start for Detroit shortly after this, or maybe right when this is published. So we'll find out rather quickly what's going to happen with him. But I put him on my lineup this week for get immediate returns. I want to max out, as Ray said. You know, he's not coming back from any type of injury. He went 73 pitches in 72 pitches in his last outing. The only thing I see is that like his average fastball was sitting at 91, which is about where he was previously. So it's like he appears to be in whatever form he's going to be in. And if you're looking for volume, this is volume. This is your best chance at volume, unless you want to continue to try to stream guys in and out. But this is a guy that you should be able to get now, and then 2 weeks from now, get a nice two-start week out of him as well. So he should have 6-7 starts here down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often you're able to pick up a guy who was a top 150 pick off the waiver wire at this point in the season, unless they've just been truly awful the entire season. So I think he probably vaults to the top of the list, especially if you need a starting pitcher right now. Moving right along, we have Aaron Civale, who's been pitching very well since returning. Jason, is Civale a guy you would target this week in FAAB?
Yeah, I liked what I've seen from him. Cleveland's playing well. They're the one team in that division that's playing well. Everybody else seems to be taking a step forward and a step back at the same time every time they're trying to do something. And so, yes, I would give Cleveland a chance looking at the division schedule. I wish I had more information about what the rest of their schedule looks like moving forward. The last outing was against Detroit, and 6 innings, 10 strikeouts. That's honestly kind of the baseline of what you should expect to get when you're facing Detroit. But even the time before that, he struggled against Detroit. That's why it was nice to see him bounce back from that and have a nice outing. So he had a good outing against Kansas City. But that's what you're supposed to do against those types of teams. Is when you have the bad teams, you're supposed to take advantage of that. And for the most part, he has been able to. With that. And so given the rest of the way, how most teams have a division heavy schedule, I would be happy having Civale with me.
Ray, what about you? Where are you at on Civale?
Yeah, the schedule point is the key one here. I think Civale is the kind of guy who you want to roster when the context is good, or you want to deploy him, or at least if you have that flexibility when the context is good. Obviously, 2 starts against the Tigers was about as good as it gets. Looking at our, we have a individual start matchup scoring system at Baseball HQ, and looking at his start today against the White Sox, he rates pretty well with his rating. But then for his next start, projected to be next later in the week against the Mariners, it's very much more replacement level, and I think that's what Civale kind of is. He's replacement level and better than that when the matchup pushes him there, not when he pushes himself there.
Yeah, he's going to have back-to-back against the Mariners, assuming he's going to be the Saturday starter on the 27th. That's going to give him another outing against at home against Seattle, and then gives him a game against Minnesota, another one against Minnesota, another one against the White Sox, one against Tampa Bay, and then Kansas City to close out the season. So that's what the rest of the schedule looks like.
No more Tigers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you get some Royal starts. I think he's gonna hit the last start of their next Royal series, not the Minnesota one. So if it lines up correctly, so two more starts against Seattle, 2 more starts against the Royals, mixed in there rest of the way. Like, I'm okay with those matchups. Those aren't bad matchups, and we've seen him get some decent strikeout numbers in some of these games. I think you can do better, especially if you're in a deeper league. Obviously, 10-12, he probably doesn't make a lot of sense to like go overboard on him. But in 15-team leagues right now, the waiver wire is pitiful. So if he's out there, he's definitely a guy I'm making a priority to go out and get.
Since returning since the end of May, he's only won 1 game of his 8 starts, but he has a 2.97 ERA and a 1.09 WHIP.
Yeah.
Pitching well, just decisions haven't been there for him. But again, Cleveland's getting hot. They're doing their thing, starting to win some of these games. And so perhaps that could come through for him.
This is kind of the Civale we were hoping we were going to get when he looked like he was starting to break out a couple of years ago. So I think this is probably close to premium Civale, or at least what we can get from him.
Yeah, he's got some salt and pepper mixed in. I mean, he's got 3 in those games, 3 starts against the Tigers, the White Sox, the Royals, the Yankees before they started hitting like the Royals, and Boston and Minnesota. So he's had a balanced, for the most part, schedule. He faced the Yankees back when they were hitting. If the Yankees and the Royals played a game right now, would either team score?
No.
Wow, it's been real. I mean, the Royals went 30-something innings without a run, and the one run was a solo homer by Mike Massey. And it was really good. So it was a nice moment for him, but that was their one run. And then they got 2 Friday night. They got 2, but yeah, they've been on a big dry spell, and the Yankees is just wow. If it's not for the cheap home run, like Gleyber Torres hit a fence scraper to right center field yesterday, but Toronto, this is what they absolutely had to do if they had any chance of catching the Yankees. I remember talking about this on Toronto radio last weekend on Saturday, saying this was a make or break weekend for them. A week they had to go and take care of Baltimore, and they dropped 2 of 3 to Baltimore, but then they've gone to Yankee Stadium and it just have like kicked that dog whites down and hoping for a 4-game sweep here.
All right, let's talk about the New York Yankees a little bit more, because they've been struggling, and Clay Holmes has now been removed as the closer. They're going to run what looks like a 2-man committee with Scott Effross and Aroldis Chapman kind of getting into the role. So, Jason, is there one of these guys you think can emerge as the guy, or do you think this is kind of split between the two?
I think it's kind of split between the two, and I'm gonna, for those listening, I'm air quoting. Aroldis Chapman got the win the other night when he gave up a 3-run bases clearing double to Francisco Mejia, only because Jalen Beeks gave up a walk-off grand slam to Josh Donaldson. But Chapman pitched poorly. I love Scott Effross. He pitched well with the Cubs. I was upset when the Yankees made the deal to get him, because he's been just a great weapon out of that pen. But then yesterday I was watching him pitch, and just in the moment I'm turning it on, and then Matt Chapman hits a home run dead center field off him. So everything's a mess right now in New York. But to me, Effross is the guy that I would want in this situation, because Chapman, it's a day-by-day thing, but Effross has got a better track record. Is really tough to hit. Just Chapman got one, and Chapman's closed that hole for the most part about having trouble with the elevated fastball that got him into so much trouble. last season, and that's the exact pitch that Chapman went out and got yesterday and hit it dead center field. And I forgot who was playing center, if it was Florial or Hicks, but they almost made the catch. I mean, it kind of just made it over the fence, but it was a nice shot. But Effross is the guy that I would be going with right now.
What about you, Ray?
Yeah, Chapman's just such a mystery to me. The Yankees were up here in Boston last weekend, and I was actually at one of the games and sitting like 6 feet from the Yankee bullpen when Chapman was warming up. And, it's a bullpen. He looks great, of course. But, he pitched back-to-back days for Boone in a couple of close games in the 8th inning. The second day, Boone turned to him for 4 outs, which, scanning his game log, I don't think he had actually done all year, which just shows you how in disarray they were as Holmes melted down. But Chapman looked great. He no walks, 4 strikeouts across the 2 games, 6 swinging strikes. At that point, he had, just scanning his game log here, he had allowed only 1 walk in his last 9 appearances. The velocity was back up, sitting around 98, 99. It looked like Chapman was fixed. And then Jason recapped what happened this week, where not only did he give up the 3-run double to Mahle, but suddenly after getting 3 days off after the 4-out appearance in Boston, he walks 4 and strikes out 1 in his next two appearances after, as I said, basically not walking anybody for the last month. So is he hurt again? Is the knee flaring up? I don't know, but it looks like you don't know what you're going to get from Chapman day to day now, which, if you're Boone, I think means you have to use Effross in the quote-unquote closer role and try to find spots where you've got some faith in Chapman, because you don't want to line up everything for the 9th inning and hand the ball to Chapman and have this week's Chapman show up as opposed to last week's.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I want to lean towards the guy who's done it before, because typically that's what managers like, right? They like these guys that these are proven closer. And is there a more proven closer, in terms of longevity than Aroldis Chapman still in the league right now? Maybe Kenley Jansen, but yeah, I mean, it seems like all of a sudden the wheels are starting to fall off again for Chapman. So I think Effross is probably the guy I'd be more interested in rostering, which will be interesting, because I think a lot of people will kind of default back to Chapman, thinking he's the guy who's going to get the majority of the saves the rest of the way, and Effross will probably be cheaper on the waiver wire this week. So I'm hoping that's the case, and maybe I can sneak him through for some cheaper bids than I normally would. Moving on to Dustin May, who will likely be the most expensive player bought in FAAB this week, because he went out last night and just absolutely dominated in his first rehab start back, striking guys out, looking really good on the mound. Ray, how crazy will you go for Dustin May if he's available in some of your leagues?
I don't think I have enough FAAB to get him anywhere, which is actually really aggravating me, because I would shove my FAAB for him if in some hypothetical league where I still had some. That's where I am. And I to be honest, I was probably there before the outing from last night. That just, of course, probably, upped the ante on what it's going to take to get him. Everyone, there's going to be multiple people shoving in any league. But even before the outing last night, I was desperately hoping he would get rocked so that I could sneak him through, just because the team context is so good, and the Dodgers are in a position where they can, manage his workload. And, at this point, I'm not convinced that the Dodgers can send Jason out there to get 5 scoreless innings and turn it over to the bullpen at this point. They're just so good at what they're doing right now.
With that run support, I don't even pick scoreless. Yeah. I don't even need to scoreless.
Exactly. 5 innings in 3 months is fine too, right?
I just need to be out there. They're on just such an absurd run right now.
Give me all the Dustin May.
What about you, Jason? You same way?
I mean, it obviously helped that he faced the Marlins. I saw somebody tweeting us this morning. It's like, last week, because we did talk a little about Justin May and the concerns with commands for guys coming off injury and strikeouts, and then he goes out and strikes out 9 in 5 innings. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's it's the Marlins. There are certain matchups where these things are going to happen. But as Ray said, the Dodgers are in a great shape where they can manage his workload. they need to get him ready for October. There's no reason to aggressively push him. They have enough options to manage his workload effectively and get him in game shape for for game shape in October. It's just a matter of keeping things. They're going to clinch the division by what, September 12th? That they may be done with the division. It's just a matter of staying sharp at that point and getting your work in and being ready for the second round of the playoffs, because they're taking the first round off.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously he's going to be the most expensive player. I'm expecting him to go for someone is asking me, on Twitter, and I said I'm expecting him to go for $100+ in every NFBC league this weekend. All the teams have been hoarding their FAAB for no apparent reason are going to get rewarded right now. That being said, let's go back to what Jason was just saying. They were playing the Marlins. The Marlins have a 28.2 strikeout percentage, worst in Major League Baseball against left-handed pitching, a 71 WRC plus, a 595 OPS this year against left-handed pitching. They are the worst team in baseball against left-handed pitching. So
Andrew Heaney time?
Yeah, no, still not Andrew Heaney time. So as much as I love Dustin May, I wonder how many games he's actually going to go 5. And so if you are obviously looking for someone who can help stabilize your ratios, give you some strikeouts, great. I think he can probably do that. But I'm worried if you're searching for wins, and in Tout Wars, for instance, right now there's 7 of us within 3 wins of each other in the standings. If you search for wins, I don't know how deep he's going to go into games.
Question: you were saying all those numbers against left-handed pitching. Did you mean righty, or are you just?
I just dyslexic for some reason.
Okay, just
I just with May too for some reason.
For some reason, I was thinking
about I thought you were leading into Heaney time.
No, I don't know why I did that.
Back to the beginning part of the show where we're laying cards out on the table at First Pitch Arizona. That's when I was Andrew Heaney is going to be great this year, and he's been great when he's pitched. Just hasn't pitched often. I retract everything I just said about him, because the Marlins are actually halfway decent against Ray. All right, so I've had my moment. Justin's had his moment. Ray,
I'm saving up for a Whopper. Don't worry.
There we go. Well, maybe the Whopper comes with Manny Margot. All right, no, sorry. Yeah, Manny Margot is the next on our guy. Manuel Margot, he's gotten back from the IL. A guy who could potentially be very impactful against or for teams looking for stolen bases with not hurting you in the other categories. He's got a little bit of pop and can hit for average. Ray, would you be aggressive on Manny Margot?
I want Jason to tell me if he's actually healthy. I mean, I think the good news is that we know the Rays value the center field defense. Kiermaier's out. They borrowed, they shoved Jose Siri in there for a while to try to band-aid that. But they clearly want Margot back. They want him to stabilize that center field defense. Hopefully they get Franco back soon too. But they're going to play him for the defense. But in terms of your question of whether he could be impactful on the bases, Justin, he's coming off a couple of lower body injuries. So, can he actually run? I don't know, Jason.
Yeah, when I saw him play yesterday, he's moving at full speed. So I saw him on a ground out. They did have him DH yesterday. He played right field in the first game of the on Saturday. I take that back. He's DHing today. He played right field yesterday with Rosarena in left and Siri at center is how they had had things, but he is DHing today. I wouldn't read anything into that because they just tend to give guys they use the DH as a day off. Nobody's really ever there full time with that. But I did watch one of his at bats yesterday and watched him leg out full speed down first base. So I haven't seen him what it looks like on the bases if for anything, but as I often vent, this team sucks in base running. It is leading the league in outs on bases. Outs on bases does not take into account caught stealing or pickoffs or anything like that. But they have 57 runners thrown out on the bases. They have 17. Only the Royals have had more runners thrown out at home. But the Rays have been god awful. And like Friday night in the loss, this is where I got to vent. They had bases loaded now and the 2 outs in the 4th inning, and Harold Ramirez got picked off second base. How the hell do you get picked off second base with bases loaded? Then Roman Quinn was the Manfred man in the 10th inning and decided he was going to try to steal third base with 1 out. Sal Perez to an absolute C down to Bobby Witt Jr. out. Next at bat, fly out, game over. So it's like they just do stupid stuff like this. Yesterday, Randy Arozarena got thrown out at home trying to score. So it's our third rather. So it's just one of these things where it's like, stop running into all these outs. I believe it's cost him at least 4 or 5 games this year. It's so unlike them with that. That said, Margot should be, he hit third Saturday. He's hitting second today. So when he's in the lineup, he's hitting high in the lineup. And he's done a really good job of hitting the ball to all fields and getting on base and taking the advantage of the run. When that injury happened, I thought he was out for the season. So I would like to see a stolen base chance. And if it's not Perez behind the plate today, which it probably is, unless it's Melendez catching. But even Melendez has showed a really good arm too. He's thrown out 2 runners from left field in this series already with that. So let's see what Margot can. I'll be sold once I see Margot attempt a stolen base because I do have him in a couple of leagues and I need the steals from. Been hurting since he's been out hurting. But just watching him run down the line, I saw him move full speed.
Yeah, I picked him up in a bunch of leagues last week with the hope that he'd be back this week and I can profit off some stolen bases. Who knows what you're going to get from him in the stolen base department coming off of the injury. But that being said, like the upside, I think is worth the gamble. This is a guy who could potentially steal 5-10 bases rest of the way if given the opportunity. The rest of that outfield situation in Tampa Bay isn't super exciting. So I think he'll get the opportunities to play. So I'm taking a gamble, but I think it's a gamble worth taking on my boy, Manny Margot. David Peterson is set to kind of get a little bit more turn in the rotation now that Carlos Carrasco's out for a little while. Jason, what are your thoughts on David Peterson?
I will take him and let him ride. Peterson's pitched. I've found that he's pitched well. The Mets are trying not to give up the lead. I don't know if it's a matter of the Mets playing poorly as much as the Braves are just playing that well. And that's what's shortened things. They're going through, and this week, this week will be a fun series because we've got the Bronx, we've got the Subway Series, and DeGrom and Scherzer are both facing the Yankees. They're going to bust. And if we say all this, it's like, and this is what's probably going to bust the Yankees out of this massive slump that they're in, right? They're going to get these 2 aces and they're going to beat them both up because that's how baseball is. That's how it works. And we know it's going to happen. Or we could see like 2 massive and just really bury the Yankees after that. So it's like, I know their fans are dreading that series and you look at the matchups like, oh, this could be great. But both teams are going through their issues right now. But Peterson, to me, is just like the nice complementary piece to that type of pitching style for him to come in and do what he does. The Mets are going through a little bit of a bump. They'll take a step up and then get some wins out of Peterson down the stretch. And so, if he's somehow still available in a league, I would take him.
What about you, Ray?
Yeah, I have some regrets about giving up on him in a couple of places, 3-4 weeks ago when Scherzer and DeGrom were coming back and it looked like he was going to be squeezed out of the rotation. But as inevitably happens, as Jason said, Carrasco gets hurt. Now it looks like Taijuan Walker's hurt too. So as long as he has the opportunity in this rotation, I'm interested. And it looks like the seas are parting a little bit for him right now.
I'm assuming he's still be able to, because he's called up as the 27th man today.
I assume he'll stay up, but
given all the injuries, I don't know how he doesn't.
Yeah. If he stays on track for the rotation, he would get Colorado next Saturday. His following 2 starts, he would miss the Dodgers series and then get home versus Washington, then at Pittsburgh. Those are 3 pretty nice starts in a row to get home Colorado, home Washington, and then at PNC Park. So I think I'm picking him up where I can and kind of rolling with it. He's going to be probably the backup pitch to Dustin May and Eduardo Rodriguez, but I think he can be just as impactful considering that kind of upcoming schedule. As long as he stays on track, obviously kind of depends on what the Mets are looking to do with that rotation with so many injuries right now. The last guy is the aforementioned Michael Massey, who has kind of come up out of nowhere and played really, really well. But I think he's kind of hidden in Kansas City because he's not widely owned outside of kind of deeper leagues. Ray, what are your thoughts on Michael Massey?
Yeah, there's some intrigue in his profile. Like Jason was saying, given the lack of run scoring there and the park and the division overall, it's, there are some headwinds here. I mean, in 60 at bats, he's making a decent amount of contact. He's making a great amount of hard contact. Our expected power metric really likes what we're seeing from him in the 60 at bats. He's hitting a lot of balls in the air, which could be good if he could actually drive the ball over the fence. But excuse me, I do get worried in Kansas City that just leads to a lot of warning track fly balls. So I in the right context, I'm interested. But I think he probably should be, to your point, Justin, there should be a little more interest in him than there is right now. But I don't, I don't want to go so far as to say that like he's league altering or anything.
No, I definitely don't think he's league altering. I think he's more of a sum of all the parts kind of guy, as opposed to going to carry you in any particular category. And so if you're looking for that balance, a guy who can hit for, especially batting average late, like, right? I mean, at this point, usually if you're getting a guy who's advantageous in batting average, he's probably going to actively hurt you in other categories. I don't know that Massey's going to actively hurt you. He may not actively help you in other categories, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be a drain on your homers or stolen bases. I think he's going to chip in on enough of both rest the way to kind of help you just in general. So, maybe like a Gene Segura-esque kind of player on a worse team. So, Jason, what are your thoughts on Massey?
Watched him play this entire series, so I've seen 3 games of him. He's really impressive in the field defensively. Really impressive. Has a lot of good range. They were commenting on the broadcast that he was a minor league Gold Glove winner. I mean, say what you will about that, but in the minor leagues, they only give out 1 per position per the entire minor leagues. And this was the guy that they gave it to. But so he's been impressive there. I watched his the home run was certainly impressive, the way he went out and got that pitch off Sharon Armstrong with that. And the fact, since he's been up, he hit leadoff in 1 game, but he's hit 5th or 6th the rest of the time, mostly 5th. So he's had 1, 2, 3 games that hitting 5th, 1 hitting leadoff, and 1 hitting 6th. And he's played every game that the team has had a game. So it's like, I take it back. He did not play on Friday night, but that would have been the McClanahan night. And I would have begged out of that game too with that. So that's the only game that he hasn't played, was the McClanahan game. But it kind of reminds me of like watching him play, Nicky Lopez a bit. And we saw what Lopez did kind of under the radar when he first came up through the system. And this was when they moved Merrifield. This created the opportunity for Massey, and Massey could perhaps do what Lopez has done. I wouldn't expect Massey to go out and steal 20 bases like Lopez did, but to have the next version or iteration of the high contact spray and pray approach middle infielder that does everything decently, but not anything too terrifically. That KC profile, Massey seems to be the next guy to slide into it.
Yeah, he feels like a kind of like a 13-13 guy with a good batting average over the course of a full season. But like those kind of guys have value and tend to be undervalued, especially in the leagues where he should go in kind of deeper leagues, right? So I think people tend to overlook those guys, but those guys end up becoming a lot more valuable than high-risk, high-reward guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my only caution there is back to the KC thing. The difference between him and Segura is your runs and RBIs in KC are not accumulating with that 13-13 the way they do in Philadelphia, right?
Absolutely. Much better park, much better team context than Philly. So poor man. He's diet Gene Segura. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Ray, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Looking forward to seeing you in Arizona in a couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. Remind everybody where you can reach again, and then plug First Pitch Arizona. Anything else you guys got going on at Baseball HQ?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at RayHQ, and if you're interested in finding more about First Pitch Arizona, just hop over to baseballhq.com, and on the right side of the homepage, about halfway down, there's a big old orange and red logo of our First Pitch Arizona conference. Click on that. You'll get all the details. We'll be refreshing the schedule to adjust for the Fall Stars game this weekend, and that'll be all up on the website this week. And as I mentioned, the next registration deadline is Friday.
Absolutely. It's I mean, we talked about it for an extended period of time at the beginning of the show, but it is well worth what it costs to get out there, because it is so much fun. It's something we talk about all year long, just how much fun we have. And I've been talking with Paul on and off air the last few weeks about just how excited I am. And I am bringing the wife again this year.
I think I saw on Twitter that Jen might be coming too.
Yeah, Jen's coming. Danielle is coming. So
Sarah's not coming.
If you've ever wanted to meet the Mrs. Mason, she will be there again this year, roasting me consistently. So if you think that she acts any differently in person than on Twitter, you are mistaken. So if you enjoy that kind of content of her beating me up verbally, she will be there to do so. Yeah, exactly. So
word has it she applied for a session. She'll be presenting.
I saw that. We'll be talking more about
that. I think that's a great idea, right? So, but that's just me.
I am intrigued for sure.
Jason, remind everybody where you can reach, and you got anything going on?
At Jason Collette on Twitter, and really don't have anything going on. If somebody has an article they'd like me to write, throw one my way. I'm kind of in that block where it's like, what do I need to write about this week? That's what I hate about this time of year. There's only so much we can do to help your fantasy team right now. But I don't. It's too early to jump into next year, and I really don't want to get into the end of year review stuff just yet. September, different story. But I'm trying to look for something to write about today and tomorrow. So if you're listening to this today, you think of something, shoot me a DM.
You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB, write daily over at Fangraphs, on, of course, this podcast, the TGFBI podcast, and the Friends Fantasy Benefits podcast. A lot of fun things going to be coming up in the off season, which we'll get to as we get closer to the off season. So stay tuned. Keep listening every week. Paul and I are going to definitely sit down, game plan some really cool things for the offseason and for coming into 2023. I'm already in my first draft of 2023, and I'm building a monster team right now in my 3-sport league. Definitely went a little, probably too baseball heavy, but I can't help myself. So
I'm in a football slow draft. I'm actually dipped my toe in the football slow draft season. So I am we had 2 keepers, so I love my keepers. Go Bills! You know, I got Josh Allen and Gabe Davis as 4th and 11th round picks. So is great. And then I went out and how did I open? Travis Kelce, because it's a 1.5 per reception for tight ends. So I was like, the first 5 picks were running backs. I'm like, I'm going to go Kelce and go that route, because George Kittle was so nice for me last year in that capacity as a 3rd round pick. But yeah, I started football draft, and I have one more, and I'll be done with that. I don't do any high stakes football because it is very, very much casual for me.
Yeah. Don't worry. For those of you who hate football talk, we don't talk a lot of football on this show.
Yes.
Just because Jason and I are both Washington Commanders fans, and Paul's a Detroit Lions fan. So
our season's over in week 2.
Yeah. So it's usually we get excited week 1, and then by week 2 we completely ignore it again. So that will wrap us up for this episode. For Ray, Jason, myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.